Members, the question is that the motion be agreed to.
Te mana whakawā.
I call Nuk Korako.
Kia ora, e te mana whakawā.
Kia ora.
It's my pleasure to take this call on the Public Works Prohibition of Compulsory Acquisition of Māori Land Amendment Bill in the first reading. Mr Speaker, in the lead up to this bill coming to the House, I've had a number of people speak to me about it with the assumption that someone of Māori descent with a number of interests in Māori land would be supporting this bill wholeheartedly. Mr Speaker, this is not the case. But before I get into the reasons, I think this bill is unnecessary and quite unhelpful, actually. I want to acknowledge some of the common ground, though, that is actually being covered. The Public Works Act was, and in the past, often used as a mechanism to alienate Māori land. A huge percentage of alienated Māori land actually happened because of this act. Our land was preferred for public works because Māori had less political power than anyone else actually in this country, and so could not so effectively fight back against the alienation of land. Sir, seizure of land under the Act happened without consultation, indeed with barely any communication, and in many cases the public works for which the land was used did not actually benefit Māori. In some cases there was no compensation paid for Māori land, which was illegal under the Act, but nevertheless another example of abuse by power of the government of the day. But that is not how the Public Works Act works in practice today. That is not how it works in practice today. And the practices which allowed wholesale alienation of Māori land without consultation are actually no longer allowed under the Act. They're no longer allowed under the Act. E te mana whakawā, we have debated many treaty settlement bills in this House, which provide full and final settlement to iwi for the confiscations that occurred under the previous versions of the Public Works Act. Under the previous versions of the Public Works Act. Sir, given the settlements and official apologies which have been given and accepted for past wrongs, and the fact that there is no prospect of the Public Works Act being used for ongoing confiscation of land, that is why I do not believe that this bill is necessary. And given the way this bill creates a different regime for Māori and non-Māori, I believe it actually has the potential to actually do more harm than actual good. If the member and her party believes that land should never be acquired for a fair price for public works, then the member's bill she puts up should be scrap the Public Works Act. Just scrap it. That's not something that I would agree with, but I think there are certain works which are in the public interest, and the government should have powers to compulsorily actually acquire that land. But if the member disagrees with me and puts it up as a bill to repeal the Public Works Act, I could respect it. But what she has actually done instead is put up a bill which suggests that her land as a Pākehā should be open to compulsory acquisition, while the Māori land in which I have interest needs a special protection not afforded to her. Mr Speaker, division and separatism are words that are thrown around very lightly by some who oppose treaty settlements, who argue that the only way to be united in this country is to ignore the wrongs of the past and actually forget about our Māori heritage. These are words too often used as a dog whistle to those whose views are the result of, at best, ignorance of our history and, at worst, outright racism. But, Mr Speaker, much of these terms have been misused to oppose treaty settlements. Māori involvement in resource management, or pretty much any policy which seeks to advance Māori or compensate them for the wrongs of the past, the risk of separatism and racial division in our country, as we know, is still very, very real. This bill is the kind of provision which I believe does lead to separatism and actually racial division. Treaty settlements have huge potential to bring our country together. So many things, sir, this government is doing to improve educational outcomes for Māori, to lift families out of poverty, to do a better job for our most vulnerable mokopuna, that have, sir, the potential to eliminate the divisions that currently exist between Māori and Pākehā.
Sir, Māori have been disadvantaged in this country for far too long, and I know that the sponsoring member and I will agree on that. We will agree on that. But the solution to that problem is to acknowledge the Crown's past wrongs, to deliver the apologies that iwi have been waiting for so long for, to deliver the redress which provides a way forward for iwi, to acknowledge the special place that iwi have in our country under Te Riti o Waitangi, and to move into the future with a new relationship, a new understanding between the Crown and Māori. But the new relationship, sir, cannot be built on special privileges for Māori. It cannot be built on special privileges. Māori privilege, sir, is a loaded actual term. It's a loaded term. Another which is so often misused. Māori have been told we are privileged since before the Treaty of Waitangi was signed, but in most cases that just meant we have the privilege to have our land taken from us and our rights trampled on. Mr. Speaker, there's no such thing as Māori privilege. But in overturning and moving on from decades of ill treatment by the government, our road to the future is not to have privilege bestowed on us by the Members' Bill. Our road to the future is to live as equals in our nation under Te Riti o Waitangi with the full rights and responsibilities of citizenship. So that was what the Treaty of Waitangi should have given us. Instead, we got ripped off and disenfranchised. But the solution is not to create new rights for Māori, which is not afforded to every other New Zealander. We do not want to be a special class with special privileges. We don't want to be that. We just want to be equal citizens in our own country. Sir, I cannot support this bill despite Catherine Delahunty's best intentions. Your best intentions, but this is not the right thing for Māori, and sir, it is not the right thing for New Zealand. So I cannot support this bill. Kia ora.